The Battle of the Wilderness, Ulysses S. Grant versus Robert E. Lee. Grant was not born into privilege. He came from a modest Ohio family, shy and unassuming, with a knack for horses. At West Point, he was average academically, but excelled in horsemanship. His early military career in the Mexican War showed flashes of brilliance, but after the war, he struggled. He resigned from the army amid rumors of heavy drinking, a habit born of loneliness, depression, and financial failure. He tried farming, real estate, and even selling firewood, but nothing stuck. By 1861, he was a washed-up former officer working in his father's leather goods store. Then came the Civil War. Grant was called back to duty, and suddenly his quiet determination found its purpose. He won victories at Fort Donelson, where he demanded unconditional surrender, at Shiloh, where he held firm despite staggering losses, and at Vicksburg, where he split the Confederacy in two. These triumphs made him Lincoln's man. By 1864, he was appointed commander of all Union armies. Grant's strategy was simple but revolutionary. Attack everywhere, all at once. He would stretch Confederate forces thin, grind them down, and never retreat. He set up headquarters with the Army of the Potomac, a massive, well-fed, well-supplied force ready for the ordeal. Lee was the opposite of Grant in many ways. Tall, dignified, with a commanding presence, he came from Virginia aristocracy. His father was Light Horse Harry Lee, a Revolutionary War hero, though the family fortunes declined. Lee married Mary Custis, great-granddaughter of Martha Washington, tying him to the legacy of America's founding families. They had 7 children. Lee was deeply devoted to family, faith, and duty. When the war began, Lincoln offered him command of Union forces. Lee declined, unwilling to fight against Virginia. He joined the Confederacy, quickly rising to command the Army of Northern Virginia. His early campaigns, the 7 Days Battles, Second Manassas, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville, cemented his reputation as a brilliant tactician. His blunder came at Gettysburg, where his gamble failed. Yet he remained the Confederacy's greatest hope. By 1864, Lee's army was outnumbered nearly 2-1. Supplies were scarce. He had to fight defensively, conserving strength, hoping to hold out until Northern elections might change the political tide. On May 3, 1864, Grant's army broke camp. The Union soldiers marched into the dreaded wilderness, a 70-square-mile labyrinth of dense forest, scrub, and tangled thickets. Poorly mapped, with only a handful of narrow roads like the Orange Turnpike and the Plank Road, it was a nightmare landscape. Artillery? Useless. The trees swallowed cannon fire. Cavalry? Hampered. Horses could barely maneuver. Visibility? Almost non-existent. Regiments vanished into the undergrowth, fighting blind. Grant hoped to march through quickly before Lee reacted. But Lee was too sharp. He saw Grant's right flank exposed and moved fast. Lee deployed his forces with precision. Richard Ewell's 2nd Corps, about 20,000 men, down the Orange Turnpike, anchoring the northern approach. A.P. Hill's 3rd Corps, roughly 15,000 men, along the Plank Road, directly facing Hancock's Union 2nd Corps. James Longstreet's 1st Corps, around 12,000 men, was hurrying from East Tennessee. But the long march delayed his arrival, leaving Lee temporarily short-handed. This delay would prove critical. On the morning of May 5th, the armies collided. The wilderness swallowed them in smoke and chaos. Warren's 5th Corps and Sedgwick's 6th Corps fought around Saunders Field, a rare clearing. Union troops advanced across open ground, only to be met by Confederate volleys from the woods. Smoke, confusion, and tangled brush made command nearly impossible. Hancock's 2nd Corps held the Brock Road intersection, a vital crossroads. His men fought fiercely, repelling Confederate probes and securing the Union left. The fighting was bitter, confused, and inconclusive. Soldiers fired blindly through brush. Officers struggled to control regiments they couldn't even see. By nightfall, Grant prepared for a decisive morning blow. At dawn, Union attacks surged. Hancock's 2nd Corps smashed Confederate lines on the Plank Road. For a moment, Lee's army teetered on collapse. Then came Longstreet's arrival. His brigades counterattacked, driving Hancock back. But fate intervened. Longstreet was accidentally shot by his own men, gravely wounded in the neck and shoulder. He was carried from the field, treated by surgeons, and eventually recovered, but he would not rejoin the fight that day. His attack lost momentum. With Longstreet down, Lee himself rode forward to rally the men. The Texas Brigade arrived, battle-hardened and fierce. Lee tried to lead them personally, shouting encouragement. His soldiers, horrified at the thought of their commander risking his life, pulled him back, crying, "Lee to the rear!" It was a dramatic moment. Lee's presence electrified his troops, but they would not let him throw himself into the charge. By afternoon, Confederate General John B. Gordon discovered an old path behind Union lines. He launched a vigorous attack on Sedgwick's exposed right flank, capturing prisoners and threatening disaster. But darkness fell, ending the fight before Gordon could exploit his success. The dry woods caught fire. Wounded men, unable to move, burned alive. Survivors remembered the screams as worse than the musket fire. The wilderness ended in stalemate. Nearly 30,000 men were killed, wounded, or captured in 3 days, the fourth bloodiest battle of the war. But both commanders learned vital lessons. Grant realized Lee's army was no ordinary foe. Open flanks meant disaster. He vowed never to repeat such mistakes. Lee realized Grant was unlike any Union general before him. He would not retreat. He would not slink back across the Potomac. He kept moving forward. And that was the difference. Grant didn't retreat. He marched south, aiming for Spotsylvania Courthouse, a vital crossroads. Union morale soared. Soldiers cheered. "We're still going on." Lee shadowed him, digging trenches and earthworks. The overland campaign became a brutal slugging match. Wilderness, Spotsylvania, North Anna, and finally Cold Harbor, where Grant's men would face one of the deadliest assaults of the war. The Wilderness was not a victory for either side. It was a trial by fire. Grant proved he would fight on, no matter the cost. Lee proved his army could still defy overwhelming odds. Together, they turned Virginia into a landscape of trenches, fire, and blood. The overland campaign was underway, a relentless march toward Richmond, where the fate of the nation would be decided. That's the Wilderness to Cold Harbor, a clash of titans, a campaign of attrition, and a turning point in the Civil War.